Good afternoon. It is early March. I thought spring had sprung, but we had a cold front go through last night, and it is super cold today, back down into the 20s. So either way, I am tempted to try a little baking experiment today with the Dutch oven. I've made lots of stuff in the Dutch oven. We do primary main courses, we do a lot of desserts. But this is a staple I think what goes with just about anything, and that's I'm just going to make some homemade bread. Simple, but the aroma, the crunchy crust with some fluffy interior, great to go with like a soup or a stew or pasta or anything. Just simple homemade bread is really hard to beat. So we're going to give it a shot here. I'm on my back deck. I'm not in the middle of the wilderness, but I'm trying to do everything with tools that are basically commensurate with car camping. I am using a Dutch oven after all. So here we go. Let's see what we need to do. So yeast is a living organism. They are dormant when you buy them at the store, and we need to wake them up. So we're going to give them a warm environment and some water and some sugar and salt. I've got 2 tablespoons of sugar, 2 teaspoons of salt. We're going to get this hot to dissolve the sugar, but then we've got to let it cool back down because if it's too hot, it'll kill the yeast. So let's get this cooking. That took a minute, maybe a minute and a half to get everything dissolved. I should have said it's a cup and a half of water, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 2 teaspoons of salt. That's the ratio. Like I say, the yeast can't only tolerate a certain temperature. We're looking for basically hot tub temperature here. So if it's cool enough that you can dip a finger into it and not flinch too bad, and that's still a little warm, then that's the right temperature to get the yeast all excited. Yeast will consume sugars and emit carbon dioxide as a byproduct. So it's that carbon dioxide they're generating that's going to create all the bubbles and the lightness and the fluffiness in the bread that we want. Still a little warm. We're going to let that cool for just a bit more. Okay, that's much nicer, like a hot bath. So I've got the fast rising instant yeast. This is readily available baking aisle at the grocery store, and they come in little packs like this. So when you buy this yeast, they do have expiration dates, and fair warning, the date on this yeast is about 3 months ago. So I'm gambling a little bit, but I'm hoping that I'll get some activation regardless. Let's see what happens here. Basically, I'm just going to mix this in, get the yeast exposed to as much of the sugar as we can, and then we'll put a cover on it and just let them go to town for a while. See if we can wake them up. Okay, I think our yeast is active. I don't know how active it is, but if you look real close, you can see little convection currents in there as bubbles are being formed underneath, and those are coming to the surface. So I think we're in good shape. All right, so what we're going to do, I've got 3 cups of flour here in a gallon Ziploc bag. We're just going to add the yeast, sugar, water to this, and we'll knead it right in the bag. Saves a whole lot of cleanup to do it this way. Oh, that's nice and warm on the hands on a cold day like today too. Let's get some extra air out of this. There we go. I'm not fighting the bubbles as much. Alright, what we're going to do is knead this up for about 10 minutes. And then we're going to set it someplace warm, tuck it inside a warm jacket, somewhere about 75 degrees or higher, and let it sit and rise for 45 minutes. Anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours, but I don't want to wait 2 hours. Alright, so after a lot of kneading and working to make sure all the dry has been mixed in, this is what we get. Like I say, we're going to put this somewhere warm and just let it rise. Let the yeast do its work. All right, it's been 45 minutes. I've got quite a bit of bubbling going on here, and it's got kind of a springy texture to it. So we're going to take it out, knead it into a ball, and let it do a second rise in the Dutch oven. It's extremely sticky, but it's coming out of the bag okay. Okay. A couple little dry spots that I didn't mix very well. Let's try to incorporate that now. I did put some oil in the pan. You don't have to do this in a Dutch oven. You could do it in a small cook pot. The challenge there is, particularly if it's thin-walled, is you got to watch for hot spots. But if you do, low flame, and then build a little twiggy fire on the lid so that you get heat both from above and below like a normal oven. Dutch ovens are great at this because cast iron distributes heat so evenly that you get a real good baking environment. So again, I'm just kneading and breaking up, and I'm just gonna, I think I've done that enough. I'm gonna form it into a nice ball and set it in here and just cover it up for about a half an hour. Again, we'll kind of try to keep it sort of warm, and we'll come back and get this thing on the fire. All right, so I've got about 15 to 20 minutes for the dough to continue to rise in the oven. So I'm going to go ahead and get my charcoal lit and start to get a fire ready. So hopefully this will go well. 30 to 50 minutes, and we will check it then. I'm going to turn it periodically just to keep any hot spots from forming, but should be okay. It did not turn out okay. You've probably guessed the yeast did not rise, and I screwed up the camera footage of the big reveal, but it was a dense mess. I also lost track of time and burned it both top and bottom. So complete disaster. On to take two. All right, I'm working on take two. This one, I'm worried that I might have killed the yeast and had the water too hot because the dough did not come out near as thick. Now, granted, the last one came out too dense. I think the yeast probably didn't activate fully. It probably was beyond his expiration date like I thought it might be. This is new yeast, but the dough came out very runny, for lack of a better term. So I'm afraid it's going to be flat instead of poofy. I've already started take three. We'll see how this works. This is harder than I thought. Take three. My yeast is downright foamy. I don't want to count my chickens, but this is hopefully better. Okay, here's the reveal for take two. I'm afraid it's more of a bannock than a loaf. Let's see what we got. Yep. Very flat. Very flat. Well, maybe still tasty, but all right. Take three is rising as we speak. We'll give it another shot. That is some dense loaf right there. Mmm. Mmm. I mean, tastes like bread, but it's thick. It's dense stuff. Oh well. Trying again. I'm getting ready to lose daylight. I don't know what I'm going to do for this third one. All right, getting the coals going for version 3. I'm going to have to move some of this inside or it's going to be impossible to film this. I've lost the light. All right, folks, that is definitely poofier than the others. Feeling better. Feeling better. My wife has been making all kinds of fun of me throughout this journey. Who knew it would be so tough? You know, and on one hand it's like, okay, this is technology that's thousands of years old, right? It's not, and it doesn't take anything high-tech, but you know, her point is, well, the same is true of weaving and pottery, and for that matter, like flint knapping, right? I can't just do those. They've been done for thousands of years too, but it takes some knowledge, it takes some practice, and I will admit, I underestimated how hard this would be. It's all right. It's been a learning journey. The other thing is, I never did any of this. You know, this was all the rage at COVID. People were making sourdough a lot during the COVID years. I never did that. I perhaps could have learned something had I tried it then. Well, let's see what we can do here. Hopefully, third time is the charm. Alright, it's getting windy and cold out here, so I think we may be done. Let's see. Woo! Oh, that looks good. That looks really good. I smell a little bit of burnt, but I think that's probably just maybe a little bit on the bottom. It's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. I'm going to go ahead and get this inside, let it rest, and we'll cut it up and see how we did. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So what have I learned here? I've learned it's harder than it looks, and it's harder than it appears to be. I am completely now apologetic, I guess, to all the folks who learned how to do this in COVID, and I'm behind. Yeast matters. It's got to be good, got to be activated right, and the temperature of your dough rises has to be right. I think part of my issue early was that it was cold outside. I didn't do enough to try to keep everything warm while it was rising. I think this could go with more time too. This is a pretty quick recipe to try to just turn it into bread as quickly as possible. I think if I were camping out and I knew I was going to be there for a while, I would start this maybe even the night before, let it rise, maybe do a couple of rises during the day, give it a couple of hours, let it really poof up. This was 45 minutes for the first rise, 30 minutes for the second one. That was it. And as you can see, it's good, but it's still kind of dense. Yeah. Anyway, this has been an interesting journey. I've learned a lot. It's still doable. I will try it again, probably when it gets warmer outside. But yeah, it's an educational and fun journey if you've got a few minutes to give this a shot. So get out there.